Hi there, welcome back to ADSR FM8 tutorials. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, get yourself subscribed, youtube.com/ADSR tuts. Kicking off a new feature today, and for the rest of this month we're going to be looking at the envelopes in FM8 and just discussing the various features we have on offer here and how we can just customize these envelopes for some really interesting sort of sound design possibilities. So we're going to kick off today with just a bit of a overview really of what these envelopes can do, what all these parameters are referring to in here. So we start off, we've got this new sound in FM8 and I've just gone straight to this, it's only operator F what is routed to the output at the moment. So I'm going to have a look at this here. So start off in the envelope section, you've got a list of presets what you can load up, which is a really cool starting point. And I know a few people, including myself, when I first installed FM8, the presets, when I do this drop down here, got all these cool presets in here. These didn't load up, this was just blank, and we've actually done a tutorial covering how you can get your envelope presets to show up along with your arpeggiator presets. And if you just Google FM8 missing envelope presets, the first result on the Google search will be the tutorial we did covering how to get these envelope presets to show up in FM8. And so this is a good starting point. You know, you've got your ADSR envelopes, classic, and you know, a variety, kind of range really. Some kind of looping envelopes and stuff like that. So good starting points really. Just to sort of start off with a decent kind of customizable envelope. By default we have the gate envelope loaded in on all of the operators, as you can see here. So just cover briefly, if you're not familiar, what ADSR refers to with an envelope. So A stands for attack, so this is how long the envelope takes to reach its peak sound. So at the moment we've got a very sharp attack on this envelope. So straight away, as soon as we hit a key, we're getting the full volume. If I back the attack off, it's actually taken a short while for the sound to reach its full volume with this slow attack. And after attack you have decay. If we tweak around with the decay, obviously it's a bit different with the envelopes in FM8 because normally you'd see something a bit more like this, maybe a bit more familiar. But when you're customizing your envelopes, you know, we're just using these breakpoints on here. So decay is how long it takes for this, the level, once it's reached the attack point, it's how long it takes to get to the sustain point. So if I do a really kind of long decay now, you see this decay, the level meter here is much slower as this sort of level kind of peaks down to the sustain point. Goes much slower. And then if I shorten the decay time, you know, and then the sustain is the level at which the sound sustains for. So you know, we've got a high level sustain here and it's sustaining at this kind of full volume. If I lower the sustain level, and it sustains at kind of zero volume, we're getting no sustain level. So, and then the release on an envelope is how long the sound takes from the sustain level once you let go of the key, how long it takes to just the sound to tail off to kind of reach zero volume. So a much longer release time, let go of the key here, and it's still, this release stage is still kind of fading out. And then if I sharpen up that release, much shorter kind of tail time once we've let go of the key. So that's a kind of brief sort of overview really, ADSR. Obviously it's important to understand what attack, decay, sustain, release do when you're sort of using envelopes. So important to understand that before we delve any further. So we've looked here already at how we can kind of load up some of these envelope presets. Of course, if we customize an envelope in here and go, right, we really like that, we can save that. Unfortunately, we don't have any slots to save into in here, which is a bit disappointing that we've not got an extra 10 or 20 kind of slots to save our customized envelopes. So you just have to, if you want to start saving envelopes, sacrifice one of these kind of preloaded envelope presets that come with FM8. So I think I've got rid of this one here. This is my customized envelope, so I can just save that in there. And so if I want to call up that envelope again, I can do. I've saved it as gate there. So that's how you can save your envelopes. Next to save, in the envelope section, we've got key scaling. So at the moment, let's get a more interesting waveform on this sound really. So go back to this operator F, and what key scaling is relating to the pitch of the key that's being pressed on the keyboard. So if we go to higher values, say with this envelope here and the key scaling at 0, and I play like a C6, getting a bit of release. If I take this key scaling right up to 100, getting no release. At higher key scaling values, it shortens all time values. So it's to emulate kind of plucked instruments really. So, you know, guitar plucking or something like that. So, you know, hardly any release there. Take that key scaling off. You're getting a longer release again. So you can control your time values, your release and decay times using this key scaling. Velocity scaling, it works in a similar way. So turn this right up to 100, hit the key really hard, I get a long release time, and if I hit it really soft, I get hardly any release time at all. Hard, soft. And this can go in negative as well here. So if I hit the key really hard now, I'm getting any release, and if I hit it soft, I'm getting a much longer release. So you can start applying, you know, getting some kind of human feel on your envelopes using this velocity scaling in here. And next to that we have sustain. So with sustain activated, at the moment it's activated whilst it's yellow. What's going to happen is this grid here, this is time values at the moment. So this is sustain point is here. So at the moment it's 0.4 seconds long, this envelope. So it's going to sustain here. Now if I take this, and that's going to sustain there as long as I hold the key down. If I take that, uncheck that box, I'm still holding down the key. It's not entered to that sustain mode at all. It's gone straight from attack decay and straight to release and just gone down. So obviously I can lengthen the envelope, but still as soon as it reaches the sustain point, it's not going to sustain, it's just going to enter the release phase unless that box is checked, and then it just keeps sustaining. Same with release here. At the moment it's activated, so once we leave the sustain mode, once we leave the sustain phase, we get the release. If I uncheck this box, the envelope's just going to stay sustained no matter if I've let go of the key or not. So take off that release and I hold down C3, let go, and it's still sustaining because we've not got a release phase on the envelope now. So yeah, next up to that we've got tempo sync, which is a really great feature, and one of the things that makes FM8's envelopes really kind of unique is this tempo sync. And now if you noticed, initially this is all time values here in seconds, so 2, 3, 4 seconds. Once you hit tempo sync, we're getting grid values, and the best way, well the way I find easiest to work with these grid values is to zoom out, and then this is basically bars. So now, and this is relevant to your host DAW, the tempo is going to set the kind of this, it's going to sync to that host tempo. So at the moment we're looping over, that envelope is 1 bar long, and then obviously you can change this here 2 bars. And once you enter tempo sync, once you got that activated, your breakpoints, as you move these around, they snap to absolute values, which is pretty cool. So you get exactly 4 bars there, 4 bar long envelope. So that's a really cool feature of FM8's envelopes, and that's something we're going to be looking at and customizing our own envelopes with a lot more in some of the future tutorials this month. Okay, so next thing I'm going to look at is maybe how we can insert breakpoints in here. And what you can do is right click or control click on the Mac, right click on the PC, and you can insert extra breakpoints in here, and then you can start moving these around. Just click on the box, click and drag, and we can start. And we can just keep adding more. I think there is a limit. I'm not sure what the limit is on breakpoints, but there is a limit. And then in between each of these breakpoints, have you noticed I'm clicking on the background here to zoom in and out, clicking and dragging up to zoom in, dragging down to zoom out. And if you can't view the whole envelope at one point, what you can do is double click on the background, and it brings that whole envelope into view there, so you can see the whole envelope, what you're editing there. Just double click. In between these breakpoints, you got this slope point, this little circular, and if you kind of click and drag up and down, you can edit that. You can edit those slopes there. And you can get some really precise control over how you start customizing these envelopes using those breakpoints, inserting them and clicking and dragging these slopes here. Okay, so underneath that we've got this breakpoint here. This BP stands for breakpoint, and this is just referencing, if you notice it changes, this is referencing, the 5 stands for the number in this sequence, this envelope sequence. This is the 5th envelope. This is the 5th breakpoint highlighted out of 8. Let's see, I go here, it's the 6th. So it's just telling you which breakpoint you've got highlighted or you're editing at the time, which can be quite handy. So that's just relevant to the breakpoint that you've got selected. Next to that is the modes. So SLD stands for slide mode. So you watch this release point here, this end point. If I edit this breakpoint here, I move the release point, so the length of the whole envelope gets moved. The same if I use this breakpoint, it all moves. Which can be useful if you want to extend your envelopes right out and go, right, we want a really long envelope. In this slide mode, we'll just let you do that. But say if we set an envelope length here, we want our envelope length to be 8 bars long, and when we go in here and make changes on the breakpoints in here, we don't want to edit the end of that envelope. We want to keep the length of the envelope the same. Just click on the SLD, and then the mode converts to fixed. So we've got fixed envelope length now. So if I go and hit this breakpoint, start editing this envelope length is going to stay the same. So you could still, if you were doing a tempo synced looping envelope, it's still going to be looping over that same kind of 16 bar section, no matter if we start adding extra breakpoints in here and moving these around. It still stays the same, which is quite useful. Okay, so next to the mode, we've got this ABST, absolute time. So this is the amount of time in seconds from the start of the envelope to the breakpoint being edited. So as I move along the breakpoints, it's just going to get longer. So it's basically the amount of time from the start of the envelope to the breakpoint that you've got selected that you're editing, and you can see the further down the envelope I move, the higher that value goes. Next to that, you've got release time, which shows the time between the current and previous breakpoint, and you can actually edit this. If I check the mode back to slide here, you can actually double click on this and edit it. Double click that, increase that release time to 8 there, and it's increase the time between these two breakpoints, increase it to 16, and so on. So you can actually start editing the time between breakpoints in here in kind of numerical values rather than sort of doing it manually in the envelope editor. Next to that, you've got level, and this is the level of the breakpoint you're editing. So obviously that's going up and down as I'm moving this breakpoint up and down, and again I can double click in here and I can get absolute values. I can start typing in numerical values if I want all the breakpoints to be at like 0.6, you know, exact same value. I can go ahead and do that, you know, so we can get some really precise control over these envelopes. Next to that we've got slope. Again, this is what we were talking about before, this kind of like little circle in between the breakpoints where we can edit the slope points. We can also, if we want to, numerical values or absolute values on these slopes, and go, I want this slope to be the same as this slope. Go in here and go, you know, 0.390 on that slope, and then highlight this slope here, 0.390 again, and we've got the same slope going on either side of this breakpoint. So again, a lot of precise control there. So that's most of the stuff covered with the envelopes, really. Maybe some of the more boring stuff is out the way now, but obviously watching this tutorial and going through all these points, we understand now how we can start customizing envelopes and what all of these parameters are referring to within this envelope section. So in the future tutorials we're going to get a lot more kind of creative with how we can start customizing our own really cool envelope shapes, just for really sort of personalized sounds, which is something I think FM8 just really comes into its own with these envelopes here. So make sure you come and check us out for the future tutorials on the envelopes in FM8, and I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Any questions, please get in touch. Also get yourself over to our website, fm8tutorials.com. Tons more tutorials there on Native Instruments FM8. And yeah, thanks for watching. Alright, cheers guys, bye.